Okay, so you're here with us on the deep dive
Yeah.
because you're ready to like really understand all this talk about fat-burning foods, right?
Exactly.
But you don't want to like wade through a ton of information. That can be super overwhelming.
Absolutely.
So we're going to try to like distill the essentials for you from a really good source.
Yeah.
Make it fun and engaging.
Yes. And we're going to do that with Tom Venuto's e-report called Foods That Burn Fat, Foods That Turn to Fat Part 1, Foods That Burn Fat.
And he's the author of Burn the Fat, Feed the Muscle.
That's right. A lot of people in the fitness world are very familiar with that book.
Yeah, definitely.
And his background is bodybuilding.
Right.
So he comes from that kind of very practical, results-oriented perspective on nutrition.
That's why we chose this one, right?
Exactly.
Because it's like super foundational.
Yeah.
It's not getting into all the like...
Minutia.
Yeah, the minutia, the like different arguments and stuff.
Like,
it's like, what are the core foods that you should think about?
Yeah, and he calls them foundational fat-burning foods.
And within those foundational foods...
He has a list of 12.
The terrific 12.
That's right. He calls them the terrific 12.
And he's like, look, you know, variety's good, but these are like the core, like the most dependable foods that you should be focusing on.
Yeah, they're the staples that you can return to over and over again.
Okay, so let's dive right in with one that a lot of people are already pretty familiar with, oatmeal.
Of course.
Oatmeal.
Yeah.
This is like if you could only choose one complex carbohydrate for fat loss, he would choose oatmeal.
That's right.
So we see it everywhere, right? It's in breakfast bowls.
Absolutely.
It's a pre-workout fuel. What is it about it, though, that makes it so special?
Well, it's that nutritional trifecta that oatmeal provides.
Okay.
In just a half a cup of dry oats, you're getting around 27 grams of complex carbohydrates.
Okay.
But you're also getting a significant amount of protein, 5 grams, and a good amount of fat, 3 grams of the healthy kind of fat. So it's the balance that makes it so special.
And that balance, right, leads to that low glycemic index, which he really emphasizes.
Exactly.
And I think for people who aren't as familiar with what glycemic index is, it's basically like, how quickly does this food...
Raise your blood sugar.
Raise your blood sugar, right.
Right.
So oatmeal, because it's got that good combination of protein and fat, is low on that glycemic index.
Right.
So it gives you this slow release of energy.
Exactly. And that helps you to feel fuller for longer.
Right.
And it helps to maintain more stable blood sugar levels.
Which is what you want when you're trying to lose fat, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so then how does he recommend that people prepare their oatmeal?
Well, he's very specific about this.
Yeah.
He wants you to use all natural, old-fashioned, or quick cooking oats.
Okay.
Avoid those pre-sweetened packets that have a lot of added sugar and unnecessary ingredients in them.
Yeah.
And to really boost the flavor and nutrition of your plain oatmeal,
Okay.
he suggests adding unsweetened natural applesauce, a sprinkle of cinnamon, or even some crushed walnuts.
Oh, that sounds good.
Or flax seeds for added texture and healthy fats.
Right.
He even suggests adding a vanilla praline protein powder to create a really complete and satisfying meal.
That's a good tip.
Yeah.
So you don't get bored with it, right?
That's right.
Every morning.
Exactly.
Now, if you are somebody who does get tired of oatmeal, he gives some good alternatives.
He does. He has a whole list of cooked whole grain cereals that are kind of in that same family as oatmeal.
Okay.
So you have barley, wheat berries, triticale rye flakes, oat bran, and flaxseed cereals.
Okay, cool. So you can experiment with some variety.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on to another one that he really seems to like, which is yams and sweet potatoes.
Yes.
These come like right after oatmeal on his list.
That's right.
And I can see why I love yams and sweet potatoes.
They're delicious.
So good.
Yeah, naturally sweet and flavorful.
Yeah, and they're not super high in calories.
Yeah, relatively low calorie.
Yeah.
And they're full of nutrients.
Full of good stuff like beta-carotene.
That's right.
What is it about these, though, that makes them especially good for people trying to lose fat?
Well, what's interesting is their reputation among bodybuilders.
Okay.
Especially when they're in a cutting phase, when they're trying to reduce body fat and preserve muscle.
Okay.
The science editor for FLEX magazine actually highlights yams as a preferred carbohydrate source.
Wow.
During cutting phases, and that's mainly because of their low glycemic index.
Okay, so even though like he doesn't make glycemic index the central part of burn the fat, feed the muscle.
Yeah, that's right.
It is something that if you are carb sensitive,
yeah,
or if you're following a very strict diet, you should be paying attention to.
Exactly. And especially if you're doing something like a competition,
Right.
you want to choose those lower glycemic index carbohydrates.
So is there a difference between a yam and a sweet potato? Because I hear people use these words interchangeably.
There is a difference, and they are often used interchangeably.
Yeah. But botanically speaking, they're actually different.
Yeah.
Sweet potatoes tend to be a little bit higher on the GI scale than yams.
Okay.
Visually, you can tell the difference. True yams often have a darker, kind of rougher skin.
Yeah.
They're more elongated and have those pointy ends. And they're kind of more unusual in size and form than the smoother skinned kind of orange sweet potato.
So both are good choices.
Both are good choices.
Okay, cool. So how does he recommend people include these in their meals?
Well, he suggests pairing yams or sweet potatoes with some green vegetables and a lean protein source,
Okay.
such as chicken lean red meat or fish.
Okay, cool.
It's that combination that really hits all those macronutrients that you need in a balanced fat-burning meal.
So like a complete meal right there.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's move on to one that gets a lot of controversy, which is potatoes.
Yes.
Just plain old white or red potatoes.
Right. People think they're bad.
They think they're bad.
Right.
And he really challenges that perception.
He does.
Doesn't he?
Yeah. He's like, plain potatoes are actually complex carbs. They're unprocessed. They're full of fiber,
Right.
vitamins and minerals.
Yeah.
They're actually filling. And they're not that high in calories on their own.
They're not. It's what you do with them.
It's what you do with them, right?
That kind of alters their nutritional profile.
Like a plain baked potato is one thing,
Right.
but then load it up with,
The butter, the sour cream, the bacon bits.
yeah, and suddenly it's a different beast.
Yeah, you've transformed it into this high-fat, high-calorie dish.
So how does he recommend we eat them?
Well, he recommends enjoying them plain
Okay.
or with low-fat additions like butter sprinkles or salsa
Okay.
to keep him in that fat-burning category.
Yeah, it's the toppings, right?
With the toppings.
And then what about this whole thing about the glycemic index?
Right.
Because potatoes do tend to be higher on the glycemic index.
Right, they do.
But he makes a good point.
Yeah.
That if you eat a potato as part of a meal that also includes lean protein, maybe some good fats, fiber, that can lower the overall glycemic impact of the meal.
Exactly.
So it's not just about like looking at a food in isolation.
It's about the context of your entire meal.
It's the whole meal.
Yeah.
And then also, not all white potatoes are created equal
That's right.
when it comes to their glycemic index.
That's right.
Like baking potatoes.
Baking potatoes actually tend to have a lower to moderate GI, probably because of their amylose content.
What's amylose?
It's a type of starch.
Oh, okay.
And russet potatoes as well tend to fall into that moderate range.
Okay.
But the waxier potatoes,
But sure.
the ones that are often called boilers,
Okay.
those tend to have a higher GI.
So I guess, like, for most people, a white potato can be part of a fat loss diet.
He thinks so.
It's interesting that he even says he was eating them before competitions.
Yeah, before bodybuilding competitions.
And those guys are, like, super strict.
Absolutely. Yeah, so it really shows you that it's about the whole picture.
Okay, cool. So let's move on to another one that we hear a lot about, which is brown rice.
Yes,
This is like a staple for bodybuilders.
it is.
Right.
It is.
You always see them with their, like,
Tupperware containers?
Tupperware containers
Yeah.
of, like, chicken breast
Yeah.
and brown rice.
And broccoli.
And broccoli.
Yeah.
So he says that it can be good,
Yeah.
both for, like, building muscle
Right.
and for losing fat
In moderation for losing fat.
in moderation.
Yeah.
So what are the key things to remember about brown rice? Preparation how?
Well, like with potatoes, you don't want to add a lot of unnecessary fat and calories to it.
So no fried rice.
No fried rice.
Okay.
Steamed or boiled brown rice is the way to go
Okay.
to maximize its benefits for fat loss.
And are there different kinds of brown rice that are better than others?
There are.
Mhm.
He recommends slow-cooked brown rice
Oh,
or basmati brown rice as the best choices. And the reason for that is that instant brown rice, while it's convenient,
Yeah.
digests really quickly.
Okay.
And it acts more like a simple carbohydrate in that sense.
Okay.
And the same with white rice.
Okay.
White rice is essentially a processed version of brown rice
Okay.
that's had a lot of its nutritional value removed.
Okay. So brown rice is better.
Yeah. So if you're on a really strict fat loss plan,
Mm-hmm.
stick to the slow cooking brown rice.
Yeah.
It's the best strategy.
So then what about bread and other grain products?
So he talks about 100% whole wheat
Okay.
and whole grain options.
So it's gotta be 100%.
Yeah. The key for you is to look for that 100% on the label.
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
So bread products made with 100% whole grains, and the ingredient list should clearly say 100% whole wheat or 100% whole grain.
Have to be the first ingredient?
As the first ingredient, yes.
And so what's like the big no-no?
White flour.
White flour.
So white bread. And any products made with white flour are not allowed.
Except maybe like a cheat meal.
Except maybe like a planned cheat meal, yeah.
Okay. And what about whole wheat bread?
So he says that even whole wheat bread might be one of the first carbohydrate sources to eliminate.
Okay.
If you are particularly sensitive to carbs.
Okay.
And if you're finding that you're struggling to lose fat.
Okay.
He also briefly mentions gluten sensitivity. It affects a small percentage of people, but it can cause digestive discomfort.
Okay.
And he points out that a lot of bodybuilders actually eliminate pasta and bread completely from their diet when they're in that pre-competition phase.
Okay.
And then they'll gradually reintroduce them later.
Oh, that's interesting.
So the key takeaway here is that 100% whole grain options are generally acceptable for long-term body composition management.
Okay.
But the strictness of your diet will ultimately determine how much of them you incorporate.
Okay, so it's like depending on your goals. Okay, cool. So let's move on to green fibrous vegetables.
Ah, yes, the number one choice.
These are like the champions.
They are.
Right, of a fat-burning diet.
He loves them.
Yeah, he's like, you can eat so many of them.
So many.
You're barely taking in any calories.
It's almost impossible to overeat them.
So eat as many as you want.
Especially later in the day.
Later in the day.
He says to just really load up on them.
Oh, wow.
And he even highlights that a diet of green vegetables and lean proteins is a very effective strategy for rapid fat loss.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like low calories, tons of nutrients, filling.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So let's move on to fruit. This is another one where people get confused.
People think all fruit is bad.
They do, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, no, whole fruits are fantastic.
He thinks they should be in the vast majority of fat loss programs.
Yeah.
And he addresses that misconception head on.
That fruit is fattening.
Yeah, that fruit is fattening.
And why do people think that?
Well, I think it's because people think simple carbs are bad.
Right.
And they think complex carbs are good.
But he's saying
and that's generally true.
Generally true.
But he says that the natural simple sugars that are in fruit come with a low calorie count.
Okay.
Lower carb count than starches and a high amount of fiber.
Yeah. So it's like not as simple as...
It's not that simple.
Yeah. As people think.
Yeah. And he does caution against some of those calorie-dense dried fruits like raisins.
Oh, yeah.
If you're on a very strict low-calorie diet.
Makes sense.
But for the most part, fresh fruits like apples, peaches, grapefruits, and oranges. The ones that are in that 60 to 80 calorie range per serving are a great addition to a fat loss plan.
So you don't have to cut out fruit.
You don't have to cut out fruit. It's all about choosing the right kinds.
The right amounts.
And the right amounts, right.
Okay, so the key is moderation with fruit.
And making sure that the bulk of your carbohydrate intake is still coming from those complex sources.
Right.
That we talked about earlier.
And it can't just be all fruit all the time.
No, you want to combine it with those fibrous vegetables and lean protein.
Okay, cool. So then let's move on to dairy.
Yes.
He's very specific about the dairy.
He is.
It's got to be fat-free skim or 1% low fat.
That's right.
So that means no whole milk.
No whole milk.
2%'s not even good enough.
It's not. He says 2% milk still contains a very significant percentage of its calories from fat.
Oh, wow.
So it's got to be fat-free skim or 1%.
Okay, and so what is it about dairy then that makes it good for people trying to lose fat?
Well, it's interesting because dairy is what we call a combination food.
Okay.
It provides both carbohydrates in the form of lactose and protein.
And that's a good quality protein.
It is. It's a high quality, complete protein.
Okay.
So because of that protein content, some of the high protein, non-fat dairy options, like cottage cheese, can actually count as a protein serving in your meal planning.
That's a good tip.
And non-fat cheese can be used to boost the protein content of a meal.
Oh, okay. Yeah. What about yogurt?
So he points out that yogurt tends to have less protein than cottage cheese.
Okay.
So a typical serving of non-fat yogurt would probably be more of a simple carbohydrate source.
Okay.
But you can always boost the protein content by adding a scoop of protein powder.
Ah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So it's like lean and fat-free when it comes to dairy.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's move on to protein.
Right.
Starting with the very, very popular chicken breast and turkey breast.
The superstars.
The superstars.
Yeah.
So these are like the go-to.
The go-to.
Right, for bodybuilders.
Yeah, for anyone who's trying to reduce body fat.
Yeah.
And he emphasizes the importance of removing the skin
Right.
and choosing the white meat of the breasts.
Because the thighs.
The thighs have a lot more fat and calories.
Yeah.
And, of course, the way you cook it matters.
So how do you recommend we cook it?
Broiling, grilling, or roasting
Okay.
are the preferred methods over frying.
Because that adds the fat.
Exactly.
Okay, and what about those like pre-sliced deli meats?
So he says to avoid relying heavily
Okay.
on sliced deli or prepackaged lunch meats. He calls them fabricated foods.
What does that mean?
They have lots of sodium preservatives, binders, fillers,
Okay.
other additives that aren't really ideal for healthy eating.
So just get the like plain chicken breast.
Yeah, the whole unprocessed chicken or turkey breast
Okay.
is the best approach.
Okay, what about egg whites?
Yes, the ultimate lean protein.
There's no fat in those.
No fat.
So he ranks those
Right up there with chicken breast.
for both losing fat and gaining muscle
That's right.
because of the high quality protein.
Extremely high quality protein.
Okay, so what about whole eggs?
So the thing with whole eggs is the yolk.
The yolk?
Yeah, all the fat is in the yolk. And even though the protein is distributed pretty evenly between the yolk and the white,
Okay.
you do have to be mindful of your fat intake.
Okay.
So he recommends limiting the yolks.
Like how much?
He suggests about 1 yolk for every 6 egg whites.
Okay, that's a good ratio
It is.
to keep in mind.
Yeah, so you're getting enough protein without overdoing it on the fat.
And what are some good ways to prepare egg whites?
All kinds of ways. Omelets, scrambled hard-boiled, you name it.
Okay.
And he also gives the thumbs up to those packaged liquid egg white products.
Oh, yeah. Those are convenient.
Very convenient.
Okay, cool. So then let's move on to fish and shellfish.
Yes!
These are great because
They add variety.
they add variety, right?
Yeah.
People get tired of eating chicken breast and egg whites all the time.
That's right.
So he's like, fish is a great way to mix things up.
Exactly.
And he gives a whole long list of different kinds of fish.
He does.
It's like salmon, tuna,
Haddock, flounder, mackerel.
and the list goes on.
The list goes on.
And he's like, you can bake them, grill them, broil them.
Avoid the heavy, creamy sauces.
Right.
Too much butter.
And he makes a distinction between
Yeah.
like fish that's very low in fat
Mm-hmm.
and then the fatty fish,
Yes.
which he says you should actually be including
Right.
because they have those good omega-3 fatty acids,
Exactly.
which are the ones.
So salmon, mackerel, sardines, herring, trout.
Okay, cool.
Those are all good for you.
And then shellfish too.
Shellfish too.
Gives you even more variety.
Shrimp, crab, lobster, mussels.
All good choices.
Yeah.
And what about if you're eating out?
He gives you a good tip for eating out.
Which is?
Juice fish.
Oh, okay.
But be mindful of how they prepare it.
Right.
Make sure there's no hidden fat.
Or extra calories
Exactly.
sneaking in there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So last one, lean red meat.
Yes.
This is another one that's kind of controversial,
It is.
right?
It is.
But he says it's a favorite,
Of a lot of people.
especially bodybuilders.
Yeah.
Why do they like it?
Well, there's a perception that red meat aids in muscle growth.
Okay.
It's high in protein.
Mm-hmm.
It's got B12. It's got iron. It's got creatine. All these
Yeah.
things that are good for building muscle.
So why is it controversial then?
Well, because of the fat content.
People think all red meat is high in fat.
Right. And so they avoid it when they're trying to lose fat.
But he says not all red meat
That's right.
is created equal.
Exactly.
You have to choose the leanest cuts,
The leanest cuts.
which are
Like trimmed top round.
okay.
And you have to keep your portion sizes in check.
Okay.
He gives you a really good comparison.
Okay.
6 ounces of lean top round
Okay.
might have like 9 grams of fat,
Okay.
whereas 6 ounces of an untrimmed porterhouse steak
Okay.
could have 37 grams of fat.
Oh, wow. That's a huge difference.
And then he says an 18-ounce steakhouse porterhouse
Oh, my God.
could have over 100 grams of fat.
That's crazy.
So it really shows you how the cut of meat that you choose and your portion control
Take a huge difference.
make a huge difference.
So red meat can have a place in your diet
If you choose wisely.
if you choose wisely.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we wrap up here,
Yes.
what would you say are like the key takeaways for our listener?
The key takeaways are to prioritize those natural whole foods,
Right.
building your meals around those lean protein sources,
Mhm.
complex carbohydrates from sources like those terrific 12,
Mm-hmm.
and incorporating healthy fats.
That's the recipe for a successful fat burning program.
That's it.
And this list of 12 foods gives you a great place to start.
A really solid foundation.
A really solid foundation. And I think for the listener out there who wants to gain knowledge efficiently without getting overwhelmed, this is like the perfect place to start.
Exactly.
And it's not just theory. It's like, here's the practical stuff.
Here's what to eat.
Here's what to eat. Here's how to prepare it.
Exactly.
So here's a thought for you to kind of chew on as you go about your day. How might incorporating more of these terrific 12 foods into your daily routine help you simplify your approach to nutrition and help you reach your goals in a way that's actually enjoyable and sustainable?
That's a great question to think about.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for listening.